What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Headz TV, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things appearing on your movie and your TV screens. In this episode, I'm going to give my full review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, the first 5 minutes or so, 5-6 minutes of this video will be a spoiler-free review. So those of you who don't want spoilers, I will give an alert, but you'll want to cut out once you hear that alert, because then I'm going to go on to spoil some things. Those of you who don't care about spoilers, you already saw the movie, or spoilers just don't bother you, which I don't get. I like to go in as fresh as possible. Then you can continue to watch the entire video. All right, that being said, let's get into it. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, directed once again by James Gunn. I think he had a larger hand in writing this one as well, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me. Okay, starring the same cast as the first one, you know, Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Michael Rooker, and then you can add in Kurt Russell, Elizabeth Debicki, and the list goes on and on. If you want the full list of the cast and crew of Guardians of the Galaxy, you can always check on IMDb. I love that website. IMDb.com. I'm pretty sure you already know about it. All right. So, the synopsis for Guardians of the Galaxy reads, the Guardians must fight to keep their newfound family together as they unravel the mysteries of Peter Quill's true parentage. Alright, so the main plot of the movie is just that. It's the Guardians on a journey. It starts with them on a mission and then gets springboarded off into them learning about Peter's father and his mother and that whole story and where he comes from and who his father is and all that stuff. Basically, it answers all the questions we had from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, which is a beautiful thing because when there's mysteries in movies, sometimes there's loose threads. But they handled it nicely where there really are no loose threads from Guardians of the Galaxy Part 1 that aren't left hanging at the end of Guardians Volume 2. So yeah, that's basically the main plot of it, is them on that journey with Peter's father. It starts with them doing a mission for a group called the Sovereign, who are a genetically engineered race of perfect beings, right? And I'm not going to spoil what happens, but somehow the Guardians piss them off during that mission. So while they're escaping the Sovereign, that's when they get unraveled in the journey with Star-Lord's father. Now, there is a subplot in this movie, too, and to not spoil too much about it, it involves Yondu, Baby Groot, and Rocket, and an escape scenario. Good stuff. Let's see, one more thing. Oh yeah, the villains of the movie. We have the Sovereign, the Ravagers, and another villain that I don't want to really spoil because the way it kind of gets unraveled in the movie is fun to see. So I don't want to be the guy to tell you before you see it. But yeah, those are the villains, and all in all, I liked the movie. Now, I saw it twice. The first time I saw it, I liked it a lot. It's really funny. I mean, it's the funniest Marvel movie yet. It's more a comedy than it is anything else. Well, it's a space adventure also, a lot. But, it's a comedy. So yeah, there's that. But then I saw it again. And, then you don't laugh as much because you've seen these jokes already. You're not laughing as frequently or as hard or as long as at the stuff that you did the first time. So I was able to pick up more of the story, more of the character nuances, and the performances and all that stuff. And let me tell you, upon my subsequent viewing, my second viewing, I liked it more than the first viewing, and I think it went from being a close second to the first Guardians, to really being an equal match with the first Guardians, maybe even slightly better with certain things at least, if not as an overall movie. So I liked it as a whole. I definitely liked it. A rating goes, just to give it a quick rating, I would give it a 4 out of 5. It's not perfect. I have there are glaring flaws with it, which I'll get into in a second. But for the most part, it was an enjoyable experience. It was a great addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and also to the saga that is Guardians of the Galaxy. All right, my just quickie likes about it. Everything. You know, everything except I felt there was. Wait, I'm sorry. Likes. Okay, I especially liked how funny it was. That also comes in my dislikes too, so that's strange. But I liked how funny it was. It made me laugh way more than I thought I was going to, and I was extra surprised by that. I love Dave Bautista as Drax is amazing. I was laughing at things that other people in the theater weren't laughing at. And I don't think that's, I mean, that just goes to say something for my sense of humor. But I think that Dave Bautista's delivery in almost every line that he says, whether it's meant to be funny or not, is absolutely hilarious. And I don't mean that he's a bad actor or anything. I mean that the character of Drax and the idea of him and who he is and the way he behaves towards the rest of society is absolutely amazing to me. All right. And the visuals they're always amazing in Marvel, but they're just getting better and better with the visuals. They're just stepping up their game so much. Joining forces with Disney didn't hurt in that aspect whatsoever. But the visuals are so impressive, and I saw it in 3D. I like to see these movies in 3D, these Marvel movies, because they handle it so good. Even if the movie's not shot in 3D, the conversion always looks 20 times better than anything anybody else is putting out there. So kudos to Disney and Marvel for that. Quick dislikes. I don't like when you add too much humor to the villains. Villains in a movie, especially an action movie, are meant to be scary. They're meant to be terrifying. They're meant to inflict fear upon the viewer as well as the protagonist. So when you add too much humor to them, it takes away from that. They become goofy caricatures, and takes me out of the experience. Both Guardians movies have that fault. See my review for the first Guardians movie. It's my only complaint about that one too. It's the villains appear to be scary, and like they're gonna be scary, and at times they are, but then they do something goofy or say something goofy, or they're part of some goofy scene that just sucks the fear right out of it. So, yep. All right, so that's it for my quickie review. Now let's get on to the spoilers. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave. All right, for the rest of us. So the themes of this movie, and I couldn't say it before I did the spoiler alert because it kind of spoils the joy and the wonderfulness of this movie. I didn't expect it to be this oriented on family, and it really was. This was a story about fathers and sons, and about surrogate family as well versus natural family, and that just because you're biologically connected to someone doesn't necessarily mean that they're a better father or family member than someone who has no DNA ties to you. Someone that has no DNA ties can be a better family member or friend to you than someone who has the same blood as you. And that was running through this entire movie, and I absolutely loved it. Whereas the first Guardians was about the formation of a team and how can these different personalities and these criminals get along and work together to accomplish a goal. This one is about how a newly formed family functions and how they deal with each other and deal with their feelings towards each other. I absolutely loved that part of this movie, how deep it goes. James Gunn is the man when it comes to these movies, because if you really look at them and all the characters and break them apart, which I'll probably do soon, they really, really, really do not they, well, everybody does a really, really good job at making it so much deeper than a space opera comedy action. It's so much deeper than that. So as far as character arcs go, I mean, all right, so we'll talk about him in bunches. So you have Quill and his character arc of finally learning who his father is. Not only that, learning that his father is a god, essentially, right? And being a celestial. And then that makes Peter a god, and Peter has power that he didn't know he had, which all makes sense to him holding the Infinity Stone in the first one. But don't get me started on that, because that's another one of my not so favorite parts about the first farts. Not so favorite farts? Not so favorite parts about the first movie. So yeah, we have that whole dynamic, and it's really heart crushing to me when he learns that his father is such a scumbag. It really, really broke my heart for Quill, because he spent his whole life dreaming that his father is this perfect being, David Hasselhoff, Michael Knight, this superhero, this amazing person, and then he meets him, and he is that. He's more than that. He's a god. And then it all comes crushing down when he realizes that Ego is one of the worst beings in the planet. And just a quick aside about Ego. Look, I love even though the way they presented Ego in the movie is basically Jason of Spartax, I don't understand why they combined them, but Marvel likes to do that, so I get it. I'm not mad about it. It worked. I loved it. It worked. I just don't get why they did it if they were just going to make Ego Jason of Spartax. But I get it. Ego's human form was basically Jason of Spartax, and I believe his ultimate goal is the same as Jason. But that aside, all good. Sorry. So that aside, I really, really enjoyed though the way that whole dynamic worked out. Where at first you're like, oh, you feel happy for Peter, you feel happy for Quill that he met his dad, and then you like Kurt Russell at first because he reminds you of Quill, and perfect casting by the way in Kurt Russell, because he seems like they could share DNA, the two of them, So I love that. And then we had Gamora and Nebula, and we learn a little bit more about their upbringing and what Thanos did to them. And they become even more sympathetic characters. Because in the first one, you don't learn too much. You learn that they're like adopted sisters, right? And I'm pretty sure in the first one, you learn that Thanos took them from their homeworlds or whatever. So he basically abducted them. But now in this one, you find that they were forced to fight each other. And then every time Nebula lost, Thanos went and experimented on her and basically took her apart and put her back together, much similar to what happens to Rocket in how he explains what happened to him in the first one. So yeah, we had that, and then you have Groot. Basically, I guess him dying and coming back. I don't know if he's actually considered a different character or if he's the same character. It's hard to tell because he's so different in this movie. I mean, he's really the comic relief for the most part, but there's something really special that happens with Groot during the movie where you really connect with this a completely CGI character who says only 3 words, I am Groot, and you feel so bad for this character at a point you want to reach in through the screen and save the little guy. I really like what they did with his character, with the whole prison stuff. It was really good. I really liked it. And I also like how he seems... Look, he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer in the first movie, He goes and grabs that thing from the prison before Rocket tells him, you know what I mean? So it's not... He was never really the sharpest knife in the drawer, but in this one, he's even a little less sharp. If you ask me, I wouldn't go to call him stupid, but he's very childlike and he doesn't really understand things the same way that adults do, and it takes him a while to get it, to just get what the point is or whatever. So yep, that was great. And am I missing? Oh, and then we had the Yondu, and Michael Rooker really stole this movie. He was great in the first one, but I wouldn't call him a main character. He's a main character in this one, and he's so good in his role as Yondu and the role that they gave him and how it was written. The whole Ravager thing with how the Ravagers basically, he's like an outcast because he took Quill and all these other kids and stuff. Just really, really good stuff there with the Yondu character. And listen, very rarely does a superhero movie tug at my heartstrings to the point where I feel like crying or I get choked up or I drop a tear. But I don't think a superhero movie's honestly ever done that to me. Maybe a little choked, but never anything like this to where I felt like I was going to bawl. I was sucking back tears in that movie theater when Yondu died. Because just think about how tragic that is. You spend your whole life wondering who your dad is. You finally meet him. He's a great guy. Then he turns out to be a scumbag who wants to destroy the universe. And then you're forced to kill him. And while all this is happening, you're realizing that the guy that you thought was a scumbag who raised you, who was basically your stepdad, was really a good dad and was looking out for you and cared about you. Dude, it's such a tragic story and it's so beautifully told that I know this movie will never get it, but it deserves an award for that story right there alone. Loved it, loved it, loved it. It was great. Alright, yeah, that's it basically for the character story arcs. As far as standouts go, like I said, I kind of got into that a little. Yondu was the standout to me of this movie. Yondu and Batista. Batista kills it in the first one, but in this one he kills it even more as being this guy who just takes everything literal. I loved it. I loved it. And also, in the first movie, it was hard for me to find out what Drax's place within the team was. Because, you had Quill was the smart ass, the leader, a good pilot too, and all that. Then you had Rocket. He was like the inventive one. He's really the smart one. He's also tough. Then you had Gamora, who's really the strong, tough one. Groot is like the power of the deal. And it's like, well, what was Drax? Just another strong guy? But no, Drax is the balls of the team. He's the guy that has no fear. Watch him in this movie. The first time I saw it, I kind of trashed him a little bit, saying, well, he didn't really do any destroying. He wasn't really that good as far as action goes. But if you look at the few action scenes he has, he does things that nobody in the history of movies would have the balls to do. He jumps in the mouth of a giant, I don't know what monster. He ties himself to the ship and just jumps out into space with a machine gun. Drax is the balls of the family, and now I'm starting to get it and get everyone's dynamic and everyone's place and how everyone fits in this team, and I love it. This is now a family to me. At the end of the first one, they were a team. They were just a bunch of people who were, fighting together. By the end of this one, they're family, dude. I get it. I totally get it. Love it, love it, love it. Production standouts, come on. Everything. Acting was on point. Writing was on point. Directing was on point. Nothing felt cheesy. Nothing felt out of place. Not like in the first one with that end scene in the dance-off. I hated it. The way they all held hands, I hated it. Hated it. There was really none of that in this movie. Good job. The visuals were amazing. Let me say this. Disney and Marvel are really banging it down with the aging down. They did an awesome job with Hank Pym and Ant-Man. They did a great job with Iron Man and Civil War. And now they did an awesome job with Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he looks like Snake Plissken. Like, it's amazing how good they are at that. But the visuals are even better than they are in the first one. Every single Marvel movie gets visually better, more beautiful. And you know what? The more they start playing with cosmic energies and cosmic space, it gets even better, the visuals. I love it. I love the way it looks. I know a lot of people complain about the look of Marvel movies. I don't get it. I feel like it's comic books come to life in a realistic way that makes me feel like this shit is possible. Oops, excuse me. Sorry for cursing. Alright. Next. My favorite thing or moment in the entire movie, I would have to say, I love the way Ego's face looked as a planet. You only see it once, very briefly, but I would say my favorite thing about this were all the visuals. All the visuals and the interesting Easter eggs they put in and all that. The old Guardians of the Galaxy, Sylvester Stallone and all that. That was like my favorite stuff for the movie. And I wasn't even a hardcore Guardians of the Galaxy comic fan. I really didn't start I knew who they were, but I didn't really start reading up on them until I heard about the first movie. But prior to that, I only knew of them. Maybe read them when they were mixed into certain stories. But I wasn't really familiar with them. My least favorite moment, I said this in the non-spoiler part, I didn't like how they made the Sovereign too comedic and the Ravagers too comedic. even though that's one of the funniest scenes in there with Rocket and the Ravagers. And they made no, Ego was fine as far as the comedy goes. Ego was done great. Ego was, once he got serious, he was scary. And before that, he was light and funny like he should have been, because he was basically an old version of Quill. So I loved it. I also, another thing I did not like about this movie was, besides the comedic element to the Sovereign and the Ravagers, was I did not like, not Ego's plan. I didn't like the way the plant looked, how kind of obvious it was that somebody could see it. I mean, it's a glowing plant that was above ground. It should have been something that he put underneath the soil, and then I could buy it. And I hated the way that big glob looked. I don't know. It felt, in a movie that was visually amazing, it felt like something that was like they couldn't figure out something to do, so they just made a giant glob of CGI. I did not like that at all. That's my biggest complaint, the comedic thing with the villains and part of Kurt Russell's plan, and that was just the planting of that bulb. My full rating for this movie, 4.3. I want to give it a 4.5. It loses a couple of points. It's definitely not close to perfect. Well, yeah, it's close to perfect. I really should have gave it a 4.5, but I'm sticking to my guns. 4.3. It loses some points for the villains. It's not being, you're sucking the scary out of your villains. So you lose me on that. And then the Kurt Russell plan, you lose some points for that one also. And I felt there could have been more action, honestly, like I thought with the first one. But you know, a lot of people complained about the Pac-Man at the end. You'll know what I mean. Not a problem for me. I loved the post-credit scenes, all of them. I'm going to do videos about the post-credit scenes, so I'm not going to talk about them in here too much. But I absolutely loved it. I didn't know who all of those characters were outright. I had to look some of them up. I knew who Starhawk was, and I knew who Charlie 57 was. But, and Kurgan. But the Crystal dude... his name is Miramax. I forgot. His name is escaping me. I had to look him up, and Alita I had to look up, and Mainframe I had to look up. But whatever. All in all, it was a great movie. If you love the Marvel movies, if you love Guardians of the Galaxy, if you love comedies, this stuff is for you. You need to go and see this right now. If this stuff isn't really your bag and you like Oscar movies or you like movies that are more believable, set in reality action, this movie may not be for you. But I loved it. I thought it was great. And how great was it that Star-Lord, a guy whose ego runs him, dad was Ego, the Living Planet, whose biggest flaw and his whole plan had to do with his giant ego. What he wanted to do was make the whole galaxy ego. I love that. A lot of people, I don't think, picked up on that. I don't really see a lot of people talking about that. I should have really put that in the beginning of my video instead of the end, because who knows if you made it this far. But I'll do another video about that too, I think, because I like it so much. Alright, that's it for this one. Sorry it was so long. I'm trying to cut these down, but I love this stuff so much. I get to talking and the head gets going. Even when I write stuff down, which I'm sure you could tell with me looking down. I was reading a lot, you know. So, alright, sound off down below. Let me know if you thought about this review. Let me know what you thought about the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as a movie. Did you like it, not like it, whatever? Do you not like this video or this review? Let me know. Help me improve. Definitely let me know if it was too long. That way I know if I need to cut them down a little bit more. Alright, that's it for this one. I'm going to stop rambling. Thanks again for watching. Always appreciated. You guys have a great day, and I will see you next time.